Hey, what's up, guys? It's Ex-Mormon. I have my husband Jared here helping me out on my spiritual life today. And today we are talking about how to get some closure after leaving your high-demand religion. If you're new to the channel, me and Jared grew up Mormon or LDS, and we left our religion, and this channel talks about dealing with the emotional and family and whatever backlash of, trying to live your life in a totally different way than what you were told was the only way to live it. Is that a good overview?
Yep. Nailed it, love.
So today, I wanted to run through this exercise with you guys that hopefully will help you get a little bit of closure around your healing process as you're leaving your high-demand religion. What I notice as I've worked with a lot of people through this experience and with myself is that you need a lot of validation when you're branching out into a whole new way of life. And you also need to get closure around the hurt that you've experienced from maybe your friends or family or your community. And so what I want to do today is walk you through some questions that I would invite you or maybe challenge you to answer either, verbally with a friend, or if you want to post the answers to these questions down in the comments. Maybe if we get enough, we could record a video reading your answers, since this video will be us reading our answers. What I've seen is that the more you get healing and closure around the hurt and start learning how to validate from within, the more you feel better about who you are, and you're more able to move forward more confidently because you're not so held back by this weird limbo stage that you're in when you first leave a high-demand religion. One more thing before we get started is that I am teaching a webinar next week called 5 Steps to Ditch the Ex-Mormon Guilt. And this webinar is going to be all about how to let go of the guilt associated with leaving a high-demand religion. It's a free webinar. I'm co-teaching it with Angie Monco on July 30th at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So, in the link below, you can register for that for free. Don't forget to check that out. I am so excited about it. And we've had so many people sign up, and we're getting more and more every day. It's going to be a really cool experience. So, I'm excited to see you guys there.
But if that's not for you, on that same day at that same time, Sister Jensen will be teaching a similar webinar, except based on how to multiply your ex-Mormon guilt.
Oh my gosh.
For those of you who need to feel more guilty or worthless.
Oh my gosh. Not true. Okay, all right. Anyway, here we go. So if you guys want to follow along with us with these questions, I'm going to post these questions in the description of the video below. And I highly recommend taking sometime in the next couple of days where it's quiet and you can really answer these questions in a deep and sincere way, whether, again, you're talking to a friend about it or you're journaling. It's so important to get these feelings out so that you can be happier and move forward and not let this stage of your life just drag on. Question number 1. What's the most hurtful thing you've heard someone say to you since leaving your high-demand religion? I had a friend that I was really close with growing up, also Mormon, and we were best friends, and we ended up having kids at the same time as each other. I had our son, and he had his daughter, and they were good friends, and moral of the story is we were set to be their child's guardian if something were to happen to him and his wife. And when they found out that we weren't going to church anymore, they basically called me up and said, listen, we don't really want you to be like this child's guardian anymore because you're not going to church. And it shattered me. And I have so much sympathy for why they did it, and we are still really good friends to this day, and I'm really grateful. I completely understand why it happened, because you want your child to be raised in God's true church. So if someone can't do that for you when you're gone, you would really want someone to be able to do that. So I understand it, but it didn't stop it from hurting me so bad. And especially after I had already dealt with a lot of other rejection from certain people that were in my religion. And it was so hard to deal with that because just the rejection on that level was just so much. I couldn't fathom like what to do with it. And
it's being trusted that highly and then losing it.
Yeah, over just changing my beliefs. Like, I'm still a good mother, like, but maybe they don't think so. And there's no better way to tell someone they're not a good mother than, yeah, we don't want you to be in charge of our child. And it just hurt me so much. And that was one of the hardest things that came out of leaving the church was situations like that, where my worthiness and my worthiness as a parent and as a human were like called into question. That was really, really hard.
So I don't really have like a specific answer to this. I guess the most annoying things though were when I could kind of glean from people's actions that they thought I was just leaving the church because I wanted to sin or whatever,
Oh,
because
yeah.
they'd find out at the same time, oh, he's not Mormon anymore. Oh, he drinks alcohol.
Right.
Those are the only two pieces to the puzzle that I have. They must be directly causal,
Right.
And so I always wanted to be very specific, be like, oh no, I didn't just want to drink. I'm actually very blasphemous. Like I just think you're completely wrong. Don't,
you didn't want to be perceived as Jack Mormon. Like, I believe it, but I'm just going to drink anyway.
Yeah. I never wanted to be Jack Mormon. I like Jack Mormons, but it feels like if I think this is real, I'm gonna follow it. Like, if this is the truth, I'm gonna be loyal to the truth. So I didn't want people to think I was disloyal to the truth. So I'd say, no, actually, I think you're just totally dead wrong. And I would try to say that in the nicest way possible.
Oh my God.
Because it was more important to me that they know that I'm loyal to the truth than it was to be nice to them, I suppose. And now I don't really care. Like, at this point, unless it's somebody who is really close to me, if I hear someone say, because you get it in the comments all the time, you guys just left because you wanted to drink or whatever. I'm like, sure, man, I don't care what you think.
Right, which is, I think, a healthier reaction than what it used to be. Like,
yeah, you just
I gotta explain myself.
No, your beliefs are actually just really stupid. I'm
not... You don't understand. That's really funny. Question number 2. What do you wish you could say to your Mormon or religious family members and friends? If I could say something to them and they could actually listen and hear me, I would say it really hurt when you questioned my worthiness as far as being a good person or a good parent outside of religion. It really hurt when you were dismissive of what I felt like were very serious and very sincere questions. If I could get them to understand or hear me on anything, and a lot of my family has been great about this, but for the ones that have been less open, I just wish they would listen to me. Even if they don't agree, just like hear what I have to say and validate that, like, wow, I hear you. I don't know, I'm kind of stumbling over this. It's really hard. I felt so alone when I was going through this. And it was so hard because it's those people that are supposed to be there for you no matter what. It's like your community you grew up with, and they're supposed to be there for you. And when they can't be, and again, they're going through their own hell when you leave, right? It's just so hard. So I think I would say it really hurt me when you treated me different because of my beliefs. I'm still the same person. And I wish that you could see that. So, do you need me to read the question again? Or?
No. I guess so, yeah. What do you wish you could say to your Mormon religious? So I guess if there was like one idea I could just get through to them, it would be the same idea I would get through to anyone. And it's kind of my answer to the last question. You only owe your loyalty to truth. Like that should be your first principle, is truth or reality, whatever you want to call it. That is what you want to aim for. But really, like specifically related to Mormonism, honestly, my family was great. I have the best family. We're very close. There's never any drama in my immediate family. My mom is, she's been like my best friend growing up, and she would talk to me about anything and everything. And that didn't change because I left. She will still talk to me about it. And it's normal. We're not insulting to each other or anything like that. I'm absolutely satisfied with my family relationships. The only thing, a lot of times my family, we don't talk about things. We don't confront things the way we should. And if I sat down with my dad and it came up and we started talking about it, the one thing I would want to say is none of this is your fault, because I know my dad, he's very hard on himself, and I wish I could I'm sure, we haven't really talked about it, but I'm sure for a long time, and maybe even still, he's blamed himself. Said, maybe I didn't read enough scriptures with him. Maybe I wasn't as spiritual as I could have been. Maybe because I remember growing up, I was watching porn. My brother broke his leg and I thought it was all my fault because I was watching porn and driving the spirit out of our house. And therefore, if I weren't there, we would have had the spirit. And we would have known to
avoid the leg break.
Yeah, to put down the baseboard that fell on my brother and broke his leg. I knew it was my fault because of that. And I think my dad operates in a similar way. And I feel like I've shaken that for the most part. But I think my dad still kind of does that whole shouldering the weight of the world thing. And if I get a chance to talk to him, I'll just tell him, look, man, Gordon B. Hinckley could have raised me and I would have busted out of this church. Like, it's nothing really could have kept me going. I'm kind of a stubborn, almost arrogant person, and that personality does not work well with authority. And so you did your best. You kicked ass. All of the best things I've learned in life come from you. So you couldn't have done any better.
That's so beautiful. I'm sorry that I'm laughing. It's just like, it's so touching. I'm like, I'm going to cry or I'm going to laugh. Oh, this is good. Next question. What do you wish you could hear from your Mormon or religious family members or friends? I wrote down a couple things. I love you for who you are, not for what you believe. What you are going through must be really hard, and I'm going to be here for you regardless of where you land or what choices you make. I hear you. Those are the things that were top of mind for me when I was thinking about this question, because I think one of the hardest parts about leaving a high demand religion like this is that as a human being, you just want to belong. And you want to feel heard, you want to feel understood, and you want to feel accepted. And when you have this difference in beliefs and it shatters relationships, it's just so disappointing. And it leaves you feeling so needy in some respect because you just want that acceptance so bad and you can't get it from these certain community members that you maybe got it from before. And maybe you don't have anyone that can give it to you. And it's so, so hard. So for me, if I could hear them say anything to me, either during my faith crisis or even now, it would just be those things I listed. Like, I hear you. I understand, even if I don't agree, I understand what you're going through is really hard. And I love you for who you are and not for what you believe. I think one more thing I'll say about that is that it was so hard for me to feel like I always thought doubting a faith would be your own fault. Like, oh, if you have doubts because you're not praying hard enough, or it's because you want to sin, or because you're evil, or like it's something you're doing that's causing the faith crisis. And that's one thing that got debunked real fast when I started having my own faith crisis was I didn't want to not believe, but I couldn't believe anymore. And so it's so hard again when there's this vibe of like, it's your fault that you don't believe, so we have every right to judge you or not accept you because you should be doing better kind of thing. And again, not everyone is that way. A lot of what we've mentioned, like with our families, have been really good, and it's only gotten better and better as we've worked through things. Thank goodness we're not Jehovah's Witnesses or religions like that. Sorry, guys, that is just unfair. Still think these questions will hopefully help, but man, that's rough. Yeah. I love you for who you are, not what you believe.
That's what I would say. Or was I?
What do you wish you could hear them say to you?
I don't know. As I kind of said, I'm pretty secure and happy with all my family relationships. But I guess if we're on the subject of my dad still, I would love to hear him like look me in the eye and without flinching or looking away or whatever say, I know that I am, or at least try to be, a good man. And because I don't know, I think growing up, one of my biggest beefs with Mormonism is they have kind of a warped sense of humility.
Yeah.
It changes. It's no longer humble, because you want to be more and more and more and more humble.
Yeah.
Eventually you get to that line where you cross over into self-deprecation.
Yeah.
Like you're being needlessly rude to yourself. I don't know that I've ever really heard my dad say anything positive about himself.
Yeah.
And because if he could look me in the eye and say that I would know that, oh, he believes this. He does know he's a good guy. Because I'm sure on some level he does, but it'd be kind of cool. Or I know it wasn't my fault. I know I raised you right. Something like that.
That's really cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Here is the last question I have for you guys. If you could change anything about your faith crisis transition experience, what would it be? For me, I just wish I could have had some comfort. I wish someone could have been there to tell me that I wasn't bad or evil or wrong for doubting something like this. I wish someone could have told me that doubting my church didn't make me a bad person and didn't make God mad at me. I wish I had more resources to normalize what was happening as I was deconstructing my beliefs. And the thing is, there was resources. Like, Mormon stories and things like that. And there's even more resources now than there was even just 2 years ago when I was kind of going through it. But I wouldn't look at those resources because I was too scared of them, that they were going to make me feel even more guilty than I already did. But yeah, if I could change anything about my experience, I guess it would have been maybe opening myself up to more resources to help normalize and just more comfort that I wasn't crazy and I wasn't alone and I wasn't a bad person. Do you have an answer?
Yeah. So right now I have one of my very closest friends is just neck deep in a really angry faith crisis. Like at that point where he's texting me like a few times a day saying, "Son of a bitch, did you know Joseph Smith married a 14-year-old?"
Right.
Yeah, man, just let it out.
Yeah.
And that sucks,
It's so hard going through that.
It sucks to watch him hurt like that. That, like, learning all this stuff that is hurtful. So I recently started rereading Lord of the Rings, which is like the best story ever. And a lot of people are familiar with this quote, right? It's a Gandalf quote, and it was in the movies as well. But they only share part of the quote. I'm going to read it.
Make sure to say quote, end quote.
Close quote. So usually the part of this quote that people share is Gandalf saying, all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. You know, when I see that on like a Facebook post superimposed over Gandalf's face, I've always thought like, oh yeah, that's kind of a live life to its fullest thing. Like, don't waste time. It's a good message, but it's not a new one. It's not revolutionary. And then I was reading through again about a week ago, and I realized in its full context, it means something so much more than that. So I'm going to go back a little bit. He's talking to Frodo, and it's when he's explaining to Frodo, you just found this one ring, and the armies of evil are going to come after you to try to get this ring back. He's explaining him how grave the situation is, and Frodo has grown up basically in luxury, not having to worry about things like this. And a lot of what Frodo is responding with is, man, I wish this could be different, you know? And so he said, here's the quote. I wish it need not have happened in my time, said Frodo. So do I, said Gandalf, and so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. And I like the context because, like, if you read that section of the book, a lot of it is Frodo saying, man, I wish this weren't happening. I wish this weren't happening. And I think if you want to wish anything about the past, it's I wish I would have done something differently, right? Like Morgan was just talking about, I wish I would have known this. It's good to look at the past and analyze what you could have done differently because it'll help you with the future. But it's useless to look at the past and say, I wish that didn't happen. Because it did happen. That's reality. It's a great Stoic quote is to argue against, to fight against reality is madness. And so this quote is Gandalf, you know, telling Frodo, a lot of people don't want to live in the shitty era, right? But the cards you're dealt aren't yours to decide. You don't get to choose where you start in life or anything like that. Because I remember thinking, I wish I wasn't born a Mormon or whatever. I could have had more fun. You know, I could have drank. I could have gone to the high school parties.
Could have not hated myself all through my teenage years. Right.
And that's what my friend was telling me. Man, I wish I didn't have to deal with it. I wish I didn't go on a mission. That was a big one for me. Like, I wish I didn't waste my time on my mission. But that's not for me to decide. You know, it's not what already happened. The hands I've been dealt are not for me to decide. And, you know, relatively, I've been dealt a very good hand. So I can't even really complain about that. But even the things that went wrong in my life, I can either look at them and say, I wish those things didn't go wrong, or I can say, I'm glad those things aren't going wrong anymore. And I think that's what Gandalf is saying. I don't get to choose this shit. I just get to choose what I do to the shit. Like, I gotta beat this burden down. Yeah. I gotta change this or whatever. So that was inspired by my friend. So,
you know, I love that because it's all about taking your power back in the situation. Because the minute we go into that victim mentality of like, oh, these terrible things happen to me and I wish it could have been different. And it's okay to be there and it's okay to process those emotions. But it's much more empowering to say, okay, these things happened and now I'm going to learn effective ways to deal with it. It's like you're taking your power back from the situation. You're taking your power back from the church. You're taking your power back from whatever you need to. And it will just carry you forward instead of keeping you stuck. So I think that's really cool that you shared that.
A more funny example of that is in the movie Bad Teacher, I think is what it's called. It's Justin Timberlake's in the movie, and he plays like a student teacher or something. He's talking to Cameron Diaz, who's the main character, and he's very performative, right? And he wants to look very good to people. So he starts talking about slavery, and he says, man, I just hate slavery so much. I hate it. If I could go back in time and end slavery, I would. And it's supposed to be a dopey, stupid character, and it is, because that's not the reaction you want to have. When you think of slavery, a pretty black and white issue, you can't think, man, I hate it so much. If I could go back and end it, I would. What you want to see is, what did people do wrong that led to slavery? What were the ideas that led to that? And then avoid it now, if you see anything that could lead to that, you know? There's more of a comedic, I guess. I hate slavery so much.
So what I recommend for you guys is take these questions and add even more to them if you want to, and sit down and answer them really honestly for yourself, either in a journal or to a friend, and really get your story out there. The sooner you can move past the pain of what's happened to you, the sooner you can start to live your life being who you want to be and not being held back by the story of pain and everything that's going on. My last piece of advice too is, after you answer these questions, take question number 3, which is, what do you wish you could hear from your Mormon religious family members and friends? And say it to yourself. Because now is the time that you learn to validate yourself from within. And the sooner you can start doing that, the sooner you can feel confident in who you are, and you can stop waiting for everyone else's acceptance that may or may not ever come. This was a huge lesson that I had to learn, and it came to me from a life coach friend of mine. She said, Morgan, you've got to stop. She's like, you have to stop playing the same story in your head that you're not going to be happy until you get acceptance from XYZ person. Because it may never come, and it may come, and it will be great when it does, but you have to stop putting your life on hold, waiting for that person to say or do whatever it is you need them to do. And you got to be you, and you got to live your life now. And it was a huge wake-up call for me, like a year probably into my faith transition. And it completely changed the way I saw everything. And so what I started doing from that moment on was figuring out, okay, what is it that I want from this person, and how can I get it from myself or from someone else? So to demonstrate this, I will say to myself the things that I wanted to hear from my religious people. I love me for who I am, regardless of what I believe. What I'm going through is really hard, and I hear and I appreciate that about my own journey. And I am here for me, regardless of what decisions I make, and regardless of what other people are judging about me. I hear me. It may feel silly, but it's a really, really powerful tool. So I highly recommend you guys try it out. Anything else before we close this video?
No.
Don't forget to sign up for my webinar that's coming up really soon, 5 Steps to Ditch the Ex-Mormon Guilt. 2020 is the year to move on and finally be you and let go of anything that's holding you back. So, if there's no better day than today to be more you, sign up for that webinar in the link below. It's going to be awesome. It's free. It's July 30th at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And if you can't show up live, we will send you the recording if you sign up. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Comment down below your answers to these questions. If we get enough answers, maybe we can record a video reading your guys' answers so we can just have a big validation party and we can all move forward together. Thank you guys, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.